What do you think it'll take for another team in Marion County to win a state championship in football?
I don't think it's going to happen.
Give me offense, your Vanguard High School, Mount Rushmore of the offensive side of the ball. That's 4 players.
That's just such a tough decision, and I really don't want to single them out. I mean, there were just so many of them. The running backs, I just had so many of them.
You know, Coach Yancey, you don't make tougher decisions than this. We need 4 players to go on Mount Rushmore, Vanguard High School, coached by Phil Yancey, offensive players.
Okay, I'm going to go with.
Let's talk about communication. Let's talk about the love. Let's talk about communication. Oh, let's talk about the love. Let's talk about communication. Let's talk about the love. Let's talk about communication. Oh, yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your host, William Robinson, coming at you live today from the studios of TLC, Talk, Love, and Communication. Today on My Story, we got a special guest, the one and only Mr. Phil Yancey, head coach of Vanguard High School, Bellevue High School, and a staple here in our community, ladies and gentlemen. This man has touched and influenced many, many individuals in this community, and we want to thank him and his family for being in Marion County. And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to give this young man a special round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, how you doing there, Mr. Yancey?
Good. How you doing?
All right, sir, how was your ride over?
Just lovely.
That's lovely. Okay, sir, you want to tell my audience a little bit about yourself, sir?
Well, we moved to Ocala about 1969. Came from down in South Florida. Moved to Ocala, so Ocala's been home for our family since then.
You know, as a kid, you know, you done a lot of traveling. You know, your father did the golf courses and everything of that nature. And also, you all traveled a lot.
That is correct. Most of my brothers, I've got 5 brothers. Most of us were born in different places, as a matter of fact. I was born in Sebring. My younger brother, Bert, was born in the Bahamas, and my other younger brother was born in Miami, so we've moved around.
So you the 4th brother of the clan, right?
4th out of 6.
4th out of 6. So how was it like being, so you basically in the middle right there. How was it like?
Oh, it was great. I mean, you know, back then, parents just took us outside and, you know, told us not to come back inside until it got dark.
That's right. Nowadays, they stay inside on the phones all day, huh?
Yeah, we didn't stay inside. Of course, we didn't have air conditioning at that time down in Miami, so you didn't want to stay inside.
So when you think about, you know, life today, as you watch your grandkids and your kids compared to the times when you were living, what's the major difference?
Probably the world's changed so much. There are just so many things happening. So many bad things happening. I mean, kids, you know, don't feel safe going outside anymore and that type of thing. That's why organized sports are so important for kids nowadays. Get them outside, get them away from the phones, away from the computers, that type of thing.
And, you know, and speaking of sports, nowadays they get water breaks in the middle of they might be running a no-huddle offense. The referee blow the whistle and give them a water break. What you think about that?
Well, back when I was in high school, back in the day, we didn't get water breaks. We took salt tablets. It was a totally different time.
Yeah, they say when you know better, you do better, huh?
Yeah, that's true. You know, and of course, you know, I don't remember anybody falling out when I was playing high school sports, you know, from dehydration or everything, although we probably should have. But I think we were more acclimatized to being outside.
You know, and speaking of football and sports, you know, you graduated from the great Forest High School, correct?
Yes, I did. I was a Forest Wildcat in high school.
You you say it was with emphasis, so you switched over to Vanguard. How did that come about, sir?
Well, actually, the funny thing about it was I tried to switch in high school. I tried to go to Vanguard in high school. Jewett Springer was the coach at Vanguard at the time, and I tried to move over there, but the school board wouldn't let my dad use the golf course as our address.
So you always had that night in you, huh?
Well, there were different times back then. Forest and Vanguard had just split when we got here. Mm-hmm. I had always gone to school in integrated classrooms and everything, so it was nothing to us. We were down in Miami when the Cuban crisis and all that stuff, when we got all those Cubans to Miami, but so I had always been in racially diverse classes. And then when we moved here in Ocala, it had just started. Mm-hmm. So it was a different time.
You think, being raised in that environment helped you to be a better coach?
I think so. I mean, I don't consider myself prejudiced in any way. I mean, every man deserves to be judged on what they do.
That's right. And a lot of times people in today's world, to me, racism and being prejudiced is two different things. Prejudice boils down to a preference. You know what I mean? If I like Popeyes over KFC.
Well, anybody who doesn't like Popeyes is crazy, because they got the greatest spicy chicken sandwich and their macaroni and cheese is to die for.
I don't know about the macaroni and cheese, but them red beans and rice is.
You need to try the mac and cheese.
I'm gonna try the mac and cheese on PY. That's right, Popeye. That's my spot there, man. So your brother. I didn't know that your oldest brother, used to be head coach at Vanguard High School.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Jimmy. Jim was the head coach at Vanguard High School. He was actually an assistant there when I played at Forest. Mm-hmm. And then he went to Kissimmee as the head coach, and then the Hawthorne as the head coach. And then he came back to Vanguard as the head coach, and he was at Vanguard for 4 years. And and then I got the job after he did, but when he went into administration.
So he actually hired you as a coach?
No, actually, Dr. Henry Lambert was the one who hired me, but I succeeded Jimmy.
Okay.
He was an assistant principal. He went from head coach to being an assistant principal.
What do you think some of the top qualities that you must have to be a successful head coach?
Well, first of all, you got to listen to people. I was fortunate when I became a head coach in that I had my brother in the building. He was an assistant principal that I trusted. And so if I had any problems or questions, I could go ask him, and also had some great assistant coaches, that worked with me that I could lean on.
And that's so important. The assistant coaches, the assistant coaches do a lot. You may get the glory, but the assistant coaches are very important, correct?
Very much so. I've been very fortunate to have worked with some great assistant coaches, and you've got to have those people on your staff, and you have to utilize them because whereas I may have seemed like I was a little bit tougher, I had some assistant coaches who were a little bit easier. Yeah. And so you kind of feed off each other, to do what's best for the kids.
And that's one thing I remember about your brother. I played under Coach Jim Simmons. And, Coach Simmons, even though I had a different relationship with him, he was kind of, Coach Simmons is Coach Simmons. But Coach Yancey, your brother, which is Wayne Yancey, he was always the one to keep everybody loose.
Right. I see Coach Simmons all the time, and I laugh about, because him and I didn't get along when I was going to school. He was a very hard man to on the practice field. And Coach Register, who was at Lake Weir for a few times, and who I worked with at Vanguard when my brother Jim was the head coach, I couldn't figure out which one of them was harder on the practice field, Coach Register or Coach Simmons.
So Coach Simmons coached you?
No, I was not an offensive lineman. I was a defensive back.
Well, he was on the team.
He was on the staff.
The staff when you
on Coach Hall's staff.
Oh, I didn't know that you played under him, so to speak.
Yes, he was an assistant coach when we first got there. When we got to Ocala, our first year, Brent Hall, it was his first year. Mm-hmm. And so it was a different world back then.
Hey man, Forrest was winning championships, man. You ain't want to stay with the Wildcat?
Not back then. We our first year we took the old Ocala High School schedule, and we didn't do very well. We might have won 2 or 3 games. I really don't know how many we won my sophomore year, and then. My senior year, we got a little bit better. I didn't play my junior year, but my senior year, we got a little bit better. And it was after that, when my younger brothers were playing, that they were the glory days of Forrest.
Do you know James Boutwell and David Lancaster?
Yes. I played on the same team as them.
Them guys came in here and did an episode together. And the things that they can remember, you guys played 50 years ago, and they can remember the first play after halftime against a certain team,
Well, with those two, a lot of it was probably lies.
I mean, it was, to hear them talk about those days, and the sprinting to the line, because both of those were offensive linemen.
Oh, I remember those days. I mean, that was true. That was very true. We sprinted to the line and did all that stuff. There were interesting times.
Who do you think, most of the time as a coach, we emulate what we see as people. So who do you think you emulated when you started head coaching? Who do you fashion your coaching style until you learned your own,
Well, I think you kind of combine all the stuff. I mean, Coach Hall was great at a lot of the stuff he did, and he was my coach at Vanguard, Forrest. And also Coach Mitchell was my defensive back coach. Learned an awful lot from him, and I had the pleasure of working with him at Vanguard for 1 year before he retired. My brother Jim and Joe Register and Jim Worley. My brother Jim had a tremendous coaching staff when he was the head coach there.
Mm-hmm. And some of those, Coach Mitchell was still there when I played.
Oh yeah, Coach Mitchell.
Very intense, very detailed, very thorough.
Never cussed.
Nope.
Never cussed. Very analytical if you were that kind of player. Mm-hmm. But he was intense.
I always saw him in my mind as like he was to the military. Like he was always very clean, very crisp, everything detailed. It kind of reminded you of someone that had been to the military or something.
Coach Mitchell was. I'll tell 2 stories about Coach Mitchell. When he came and worked with us at Vanguard, he said, you've got the reputation of kind of dillying in the defense. I said, Coach Mitchell, if you come work, it's yours. You can do what you want to do. He said, okay, I'll come. And he would sit there and watch film and just sit there and watch it, not rewind it or anything like that. He'd just watch it. And on Monday, Coach, you got him? Nope, not yet. Tuesday, nope, not yet. Wednesday, yeah, I think I got him now. And I mean, it was amazing that he could just sit there and watch film and not rewind it, not write anything down. And he would know what they were doing.
It's amazing what you can see. Coaching is a gift also. Everyone that's a great player can't translate the information to others. You know what I mean?
Well, we'll be sitting watching TV, and I'll say, this just happened, and it's watching it live. And people say, how'd you see that? And you just get used to seeing stuff, and you've seen stuff so many times that it happens. But the other story about Coach Mitchell, he wanted to run, he wanted to man up, and back then people ran two backs. Nobody was one back. Yeah. But he wanted to man up with the receivers and play his monster, and he'd tell them where to go. There was no rhyme or reason to it except that he thought that that's where the ball was going. Well, we got into a one-back set. We were one of the first ones to get into a one-back set, which meant that he had to take his rover and declare.
Make him guard that slot man.
Yeah, he had to go somewhere. So we kind of got him a few times on that.
I'm a firm believer in, by nature, I'm aggressive. So whether I'm coaching offense or defense, I feel as though I'm the aggressor. So when you're on offense, you can dictate the defense by your formation. You believe in that, sir?
Yes, I definitely do that. And we went, Alex Castaneda, I sent him down to Miami to learn the one-back stuff. Mm-hmm. Alex was working for me at the time, and we needed to widen it out and, air it up a little bit, get more athletes out at Vanguard High School. So I sent Alex down to Miami to learn the one-back stuff, and he came back, and that's what we started doing. But I don't understand nowadays, they put the tight end, they put him at a wing, and I get you can motion him across, or he can cut across and block on the other side and everything, but you're leaving that gap open. And I was a firm believer on a tight end on the line, make them defend the four gaps to the one side.
Mm-hmm. I'm a firm believer. So what do you think about the offense of the day? It seems like every team runs the same offense.
It drives me nuts watching football on TV now. I mean, they get down there, and then they get down in the red zone, and they do something totally different than what they normally do. To me, I always wanted to run my best plays, the plays that I ran every day, down on the goal line, and not try and trick anybody.
When you coach football and you call a play, let's say it's second down and 1, and you call a pass play. Oh, what did he do that for? Oh, Mike, that's the stupidest play. Sometimes it's the play that they're not expecting. See, if he catch the ball, you're the greatest coach in the world.
It's real easy for people to sit up in the stands, and I'm going to tell this story to Mr. Farmer, Edwin's dad. Uh-huh. He used to sit up in the stands and yell at me, scream and yell at me. I was the dumbest sucker around. And I see him at the games every night, and I say, Mr. Farmer, now that those parents are yelling at your son, how does it feel?
That's right. And his son played deep. Well, Farmer played a little both ways. He played a little fullback sometime, too.
We didn't run many fullbacks. We used to lie to him and tell him he's a fullback, but he
was a blocker. Yeah. Y'all had Carlos Zenlock.
Yeah.
Carlos was a pretty good player.
Yeah. We ran that one-back stuff, so.
Man, what was y'all doing? I remember playing against Stephen Bowen, right?
Yeah, let me go back one thing, okay? I'm talking about people and calling plays and everything. It's real easy to say that a play wasn't very good when you can see the result.
Right.
And the other thing people don't realize is that you got about 10 seconds to call that play.
That's right.
Or you're going to run out of time. So you got to get down distance. What do you think the defense is going to be in? You got about 10 seconds to
make your mind up. That's right.
And people don't understand that.
I remember Coach Simmons used to say, if I knew he was going to fumble the ball, I would have lined up on first down and punted it.
That's very true. And coaches too many times get too much of the credit if they win, too much of the blame if they lose. The truth of the matter is the players are the ones that have to make the plays and that type of thing. 90% of the time, I knew who was going to win the ball game. Mm-hmm. You you watch film on somebody, you say they got more guys than we got. They're better than we are. And you sit there and work your rear end off on that one chance that you play great and they play poorly and you upset them, or you got two evenly matched teams and you don't lose the game.
And then on top of all of that, knowing that they're the better team, you got to motivate your team to believe that they can win.
Yeah. You got to try and get them. You know, we kind of just tried to get better ourselves.
Right.
You know, and not really worry about the other team. I mean, you know, you practice against certain things and everything, make sure you can line up. But the bottom line is the kids have to play the game.
You know, you talked about the one offense set, and I believe that was a year Travis Foster was a running back. Travis Foster, what's your thoughts on Travis Foster?
Well, we had a tremendous amount of running backs that came through there once we started running the one-back set. And almost every year they led the county in rushing because there was only one of them. And I wasn't going to let Stephen Bowen run the football a whole lot, you know.
I don't know what y'all did to him. Listen, this kid was a skinny kid in the 11th grade. The next year, I remember we played y'all and the first play of the game. Well, see, my senior year, Coach Mitchell, Forrest switched it. Coach Mitchell called offense, and Coach Horner called defense. And so we did a cat shift in and out where I'm finna blitz right up the middle. And man, I ran up the middle and my eyes is in this man's chest. I'm thinking, my God, how this kid get so big? I mean,
I tell you what, and I play golf with Steve every week. Mm-hmm. You know, him and I are really close. But Steve worked as hard in the weight room as anybody I had. He was there every day in zero period. He was there. You know, I had him in first period also. He worked his butt off in the weight room. And when he went to Boston College on a football scholarship, he was as strong, if not stronger, than most of their linemen were.
Most of the linemen. And, you know, I'm going to tell you something. It's a certain play, you know, and as you mature as a player, and I myself coached a few years afterwards, and I had a lot of respect for you. Did you call the plays, correct?
Sometimes.
And my senior year, we had Tony McCall and Brian Edwards as the corners. You had Amir Brooks.
Yeah.
And the first play of the game, you had the balls. You went up top on Tony McCall to let the world know, you know what I'm saying? I'm coming at you. I'm not running from you.
Amel Brooks is the best football player I ever coached. Not the best athlete, not the best quarterback, but the best football player I ever coached. Amel came off on extra point field goal. Was the only team he came off on. He started at safety, started at wide receiver, returned punts, returned kickoffs. I mean, he was a great football player.
Big hands. We call them monkey arms. His arms will reach all the way down to his knees.
He could play. Now, he was a great football player.
He wasn't fast.
He was pretty fast.
But he was, well, you know, I guess
he wasn't Tony McCall fast.
Yeah, but Amel, if that ball is placed in his vicinity, it's a caught ball.
Oh, yeah.
And Vanguard have a player right now. He's young, but remind me, I've never seen a player remind me of Amel Brooks, like Keymon Pinckney. Keymon Pinckney, you remember this name. He's a sophomore. This kid is the same built coach. I mean, he's tall, the arms, the mindset, the man, even the personalities, you know, laid back, kind of, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
He has a lot of potential. You know, I'm gonna name some players, and you give me the first thing. You give me your thoughts. You ready for this?
Hope I remember them all.
I think you'll remember these.
It's a lot of years.
Sean Nunn.
Oh, man. Sean loved to peel back and hit people. And Sean did a great job, went to the University of Florida.
You know, Sean Nunn, you know, I grew up with everybody on your team. I went to Vanguard my freshman year. I grew up in Busby Quarters. So I'm the only person in my entire family ever graduated from Forest High School. And every snap, Sean, Farmer, Carlos, the whole squad, you traitor. They called me a traitor. And Sean crack blocked me one time. He got me pretty good, man. He called me a traitor, you know what I mean? But Steve Rim.
Steve was the best athlete I ever coached. Now, yeah, I mean, couldn't touch him. Started for us as a quarterback his sophomore year, didn't play his junior year, and then started for us at wide receiver his senior year, went to Minnesota and was all Big Ten freshman of the year up there. Steve was a tremendous athlete.
Yes. Ronnie Jones.
Oh, man, Ronnie, what a great guy. Ronnie he started his sophomore year and he had no business starting, but we had to have him play quarterback because of a situation that happened. But Ronnie came in and worked his butt off. And at that time we were running some of the flex bone stuff. And he did a great job and could run the option. And he's working in the school system now, doing a great job.
Johnny Preston.
Johnny was a heck of a running back. He lived with Coach Cass. Coach Cass and his wife, Debbie, adopted Johnny. And he did a great job for us. Him and Dante were good buddies. They were always over at Coach Cass's house.
R.J. Pullins.
RJ was a very good football player, a little hard-headed at times, but RJ could get after it a little bit.
Rashad Jones.
Oh, man, Rashad. Of course, he was kind of a legacy, because his older brother Ronnie played for me, and Rashad started for us as a ninth grader and played all 4 years and did a great job for us. And I believe in 94, season of 94, I believe he was a freshman, and playing on that state semifinal team. So, Rashad's another one who was just a great guy.
I'm going to take you back on this one. Johnny Smith, the dad, not the son.
I'm not going to tell that story, but Johnny was a piece of work, but his mama, she was tough. She was tough on him now, but Johnny was, Johnny was a little strung, a little tight, but he was, Johnny was a great guy.
What about Johnny Smith, the son?
Johnny was not as wound up as his dad was. Did a great job playing for us and everything. Another one of those one-back running backs that led the county in rushing,
and
probably.
As a freshman, you had him out there.
Yeah. I mean, those legacies, they kind of...
Tommy Woods.
Tommy, what a great guy. Tommy was one of my first kickers, I think, that I went and stole from the soccer team. I figured we needed to kick the ball a little bit better, so we went to the soccer team. But Tommy, we missed that kick at the end of the game in the state championship game, but he made a great kick to get us within two, which everybody forgets. And he also, I believe, punted for us.
Antonio Wilkerson.
Talk about another one that was wound a little tight. Antonio, great player for us. And got him on an all-star team that I was coaching in. And I wasn't coaching the wide receivers. Antonio was there. But the guys who were coaching with me, they said, man, where'd you get this kid? What's with him? I said, that's Antonio. That's how he is. They said, he is something now. I mean, they loved him.
He had a little Deion Sanders, a little flash in it.
Oh, yeah.
Everything got to be right. But Tony going to be clean. I'm going to tell you something. I always say, if Tony Wilkerson was 6 foot.
Oh, yeah. But Tony, before we go out to every game, I'd say, take that off. He's
going to be decked down.
He was always trying me, and I was more, it's a uniform. That's one same look.
One unit. Derek Ponder.
Derek is, another guy with great talent, very talented, played quarterback a little bit for us, and then wide receiver. Great kid, has turned into a great dad, which is the most important thing.
That's right. Aaron Phillips.
Puppy.
Pup, yeah. We call him Pup right now to this day.
He, great kid, worked real hard. One of them defensive linemen that didn't get much credit.
John Shaw.
John was a Miami-type linebacker, undersized, but could cover the field sideline to sideline and played so hard. I mean, John kind of reminds me of another one that played for me named Greg Vandevenner. Was another one of those guys that played the middle for us. And could play sideline to sideline, probably $160, back then, undersized. And Greg Vandevenner ended up being all-state because he blocked like 8 kicks that year or something like that.
Yeah.
He was my guy that came off the edge, and he wasn't afraid to block it.
Scott Weeks.
Scott Weeks is another one of those guys that played the middle for us, and was tremendous. Scott was very smart, very intelligent, and he was one of those guys that would come off the sideline and he'd say, "Coach, I got him." And I said, "What do you mean you got him?" He said, "I know where they're going every time now." I mean, he just, after about a series or so, he knew where they were going, and he was one of those guys.
Leroy Butler.
Did a great job for us. Played hard. Great kid.
Kenny Clark.
Oh, Kenny. Kenny is Steve Rim's half-brother. Mm-hmm. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So I've known Kenny forever, since he was a little kid. But Kenny was one of my favorite players that I've ever coached. Great personality and a very, very good football player.
Coach Simmons say, when it comes to favoritism, he said he liked the first string the most. He liked the second string. He said if you're on the third string, it's Hayden and Bob. If you can get to the second or the first string, he like you the most.
Well, I wasn't like that. You like some players more than others, but most of mine depended upon your work habits.
Right.
Your work habits and whether you're a good person or whatever. I'm not saying we didn't have some thugs every now and then.
You got to have some thugs to win, ain't it?
Well, yeah.
Your reputation amongst, when I hear the people, the players talk, they'll say, well, PY ain't play. A lot of this, they'll say, whatever going on now, he'll kick you off the team. It don't matter how good you are, because one bad apple can surely ruin the whole.
That is very true. And there have been many a time where I've had 3 kids that, let's say, were questionable, of questionable character. Mm-hmm. And I've taken them aside, usually with an assistant coach with me, and I said, I want y'all to know something. One of y'all's going to be gone. I said, and as soon as I fire one of y'all, the other two are right behind them unless you figure it out. I mean, I didn't play, and it didn't matter how good you were. You either followed our rules or you're down the road.
That's right. That's the bottom line. Dante Culpepper.
I mean, what can you say? I mean, he was Mr. Football of Florida. Took us to the state to the finals, and Dante, what a great guy. But Dante, and I'm going to tell this story on him. His sophomore year of the spring, he hurt his ankle playing basketball. And we're practicing on Memorial Day or Labor Day, whichever day was during spring practice. Mm-hmm. And we were practicing at 9 o'clock in the morning or 8 o'clock in the morning, which we always did. And so one of the coaches comes in and says, Dante's not here. It's about 7:45. I said, well, I don't know. So Dante comes in, and he's hurt his ankle playing basketball. And he sits underneath the goalpost. This is Monday before we're going to play Forest on Friday. Mm-hmm. Sits underneath the goalpost, and so I brought the offense down to that end of the field, and we changed the offense and put somebody else in at quarterback, an athlete type guy, better athlete than Dante was, and kind of ran a little bit of option, kind of stuff like that. So we changed the offense, and I talked to Dante afterwards. I said, Dante, I'm not mad at you for getting hurt playing basketball. I'm mad at you because you were late. You're late, and if you'd been here at 7 o'clock and got therapy for it, I'd be fine with it. But you come in here at 8 o'clock, we're on the field. Yep. So I didn't play him. Well, I dressed him for the game. He didn't play any of the stuff. We had won the quarter or whatever we played, and I put him in the last series to mop up.
Oh, yeah. And he probably never forgot that.
No, he never forgot that. And he was always early after that. But he was a great kid. I never had any problems with Dante.
Football, I always say football has to be in your blood. You can't go out there in that hot sun and having Phil Yancey yell at you for 2 hours just because daddy wants you to play.
It takes a different kind of guy to play football. Mm-hmm. But football is also the biggest team sport there is. Mm-hmm. Basketball, if you got one guy who can shoot the lights out of it and 4 guys who know their position and play well, you're going to be good. Baseball, you got 3 guys who can throw it. You're going to be good. Yeah. But football, it takes everybody.
It takes a true team effort.
Yes.
Willie Wilkerson.
Willie was a great guy. He was a very good player for us. He was one of them, like a lot of them I have, that were just great people.
A story I heard over the years where, y'all would have, Foster, a certain running back, Foster kind of a slash, cut. Foster don't want to be hit. Foster want to make you miss, and he say sometimes you be in there and the defense may be winning a little bit, and you say, hey, Willie, get in there running back. Willie is a one-cut guy. He one-cut straight. I mean, he tough, you know what I'm saying? And it depends on, you have to prepare him for who you're playing against. If you're playing against a one-cut guy, you can't get in. You got to prepare them for what they're going to get.
Well, we would get a little bit, Mondays and Tuesdays, our practices were a little bit physical. Mm-hmm. And we'd get into goal line situations, and they all had to mix it up a little bit.
Yeah. Brent King.
Brent was another guy that was just a great athlete for us, did a great job for us.
Tyrone Rim.
Same thing. Great job, great athlete, great player for us.
Kelvin Pinkney.
Yeah, big guy.
He told me he might not have a lot of records, but he got the record for sending the MLMs on the field a lot. He would hurt the other people, you know what I mean?
But he did a great job for us. I'll tell you, I had so many kids that it was just a pleasure to coach them. Mm-hmm. I mean, and there's no other way to put it besides it was a pleasure to coach them. Now, it wasn't always easy, but at the end of it, they came out, hopefully, they came out better than they went in.
Edwin Farmer, the player.
Edwin Farmer, the player, his dad was a pain in the butt.
That's what you remember most of Dad, huh? And
no, Edwin used to always tell me he was a fullback. And I said, Edwin, look at your legs.
Oh my
Those are not the legs of a fullback. He used to tell us he's a fullback. Then he played a little bit of linebacker for us, but he ended up playing nose guard for us.
I always tell him, I want to bring up a player for you. To me, right now, to this day, just me being a Wildcat, this the Wildcat in me talking now. I always say that Vanguard always remind me of the Gators. It's like, to me, when the Gators are winning, it's no better place to be than a Gator. You understand me? And when Vanguard winning, it ain't nothing better than a night. And for whatever reason, you kind of reminded me of Steve Spurrier. You know what I mean?
Well, you're going to go through years where you don't have the talent, that type of thing. And back in the early days, everybody was good.
Yeah.
Gainesville High School was very good.
Especially Buchholz.
East Side was very good. Yeah. Buchholz was very good. Palatka was very good. Forest was very good.
Well, you should have named them first, Coach.
Well, okay. But those are the kind of teams that you were scheduling.
Yeah.
Right. And so it was totally different. It was back before the days where people could get mad at you and go transfer schools. I couldn't survive. The coaches that me, Coach Simmons, Coach Register, we couldn't survive this day and time where kids can just go to school wherever they want to. I made them mad all the time.
Right. And see, and football teaches discipline, teamwork, fundamentals, accountability. And, you just can't just get upset because you don't get your way and just leave. I mean.
Well, that's very true. We had a rule on our staff. If an assistant coach got on a kid really bad, then I would go talk to that kid before he left. I didn't want the kid leaving mad. Mm-hmm. And if I got on a kid really bad in practice, it was the assistant coach's fault because I beat him to it. So he had to go be Mr. Nice Guy and not let the kid leave mad. Because we didn't want any of the kids to leave the field house mad afterwards. We want them to leave with a positive feeling. And we had a rule on our team, and it didn't count myself. We couldn't kick a player off the team. Mm-hmm. That was a rule. And even me, it was, you can kick a kid off the practice field, but don't tell a kid he'll never play here again because you might be lying to yourself.
Right.
So, the kid you could tell a kid, leave, go home, we'll deal with it in the morning. And I had a very good player of mine that was a good player for us, and him and I got into it one day. And, of course, I didn't get mad, I just said, you need to leave the field. And he called me everything but a child of God, and I just said, leave. You need to leave the field. And he left and, threw his stuff down and all that stuff and called me some more names and everything. But the next morning when I showed up for work at 6:30, he was sitting there on the bench waiting on me. Coach, I'm sorry, and I said, okay, but you're going to pay. but you can come back. But you're going to pay a little bit.
got to pay the piper,
these
baby.
guys got to see that you paid a little bit
That's right.
because we can't act that way.
That's right. That's right. And that's respect both ways. And you know, with me talking to individuals in the community that has played for you, sir, they all have respect for you. No one had anything bad to say. And do you understand the impact that you've had on so many individuals' life?
Well, I've been fortunate that I was in a profession that at the time you could have that kind of impact on their lives. And I had some great kids, and it was truly my pleasure to coach them.
Let me ask you something. I'm gonna get you to make some decisions here now. Give me offense. Your Vanguard High School Mount Rushmore of the offensive side of the ball. That's 4 players.
That's just such a tough decision, and I really don't want to single them out. I mean, Dante's got to be up there.
Okay.
But how do you cut out Ronnie Jones and Steve Bowen? I mean, both of them all-state players. The wide receivers, you got Kenny, Rashad, Amel. There were just so many of them. The running backs, I just had so many of them.
Coach Yancey, we all been in tough spots throughout our life, and you done lived a lot longer than me. You done made tougher decisions than this. We need 4 players to go on Mount Rushmore, Vanguard High School, coached by Phil Yancey. Offensive players.
Okay, I'm going to go with Dante Culpepper. I'm going to go with Scott Weeks. I'm going to go with Greg Vandeventer. And I'm going to go with Amel Brooks.
Amel Brooks. Shout out to class of 1992 made that there, man. Okay.
But it's just like the running backs. We had so many of them.
Let me ask you something. Travis Foster or Johnny Preston?
Different kind of guys, different kind of runners. I'd probably go with Johnny by just a shade.
I think, not to take nothing from them, just as a, because.
But Johnny had a lot better people around him than Travis did.
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying. When you got Dante Culpepper, who cares if Johnny runs? I mean, I need to stop Culpepper from throwing the football. And not to take nothing from him as an athlete.
Right. I mean, Johnny had better people around him.
Right.
So that's kind of a tough one.
Foster
I'll tell you who was the toughest running back I ever had.
Who?
Russ Ham.
What year?
He was my first year. Russ was $150, and Russ would come back and he'd say, I know Coach wants me to score touchdowns. He said, but I just want to break a helmet. I mean, he was tough. We would give Russ the ball 35 times a game.
Oh, my goodness.
And he'd try and punish everybody that hit him. After the game, he could barely walk.
And he 150 pounds, and he want to punish
150 pounds. And Russ, Monday, he couldn't practice because he was too beat up. Tuesday, he was able to jog a little bit. Wednesday, he could go about 3/4 speed. But Friday, 35 times again. Here we go, get beat up again.
So he was your Larry Zonka, huh?
Oh, man, he was tough. But he also ended up going into service, and I think he was a Navy SEAL or one of those guys.
That's the same thing, Chad Brock?
Yeah.
I did an interview with Chad. Chad said that when he went to the military, it was easy because of the football practice Coach Simmons then put them through.
Right.
So Chad will be about on played with you, right?
Chad was a little bit behind me.
A little younger, that's right, that's right. So give me the Mount Rushmore of defense.
Well, I gave you two defensive guys. I gave you Greg Vandevenner and Scott Weeks.
Okay, so you did it. See, you both said it did on offense and then defense.
Well, I had 2 and 2.
Okay. So give me your Mount Rushmore of the opponents, players that you have played against.
Pierre Warwick.
First and foremost, huh?
Oh, couldn't touch him. Buoltz had a running back. I can't remember his name.
Lavelle Dancy.
Yeah, Yancey.
Yes, sir. My monster.
Nancy. John L. Williams at Palatka.
Yes.
See, I was an assistant then, but I'm still counting him. Mm-hmm. And Buoltz had a wide receiver that ended up going to BYU. I can't remember what his name was, but he was awful tough. You know, back in the day, the state had it right. Okay, back when I was coaching. Well, the district champion was the only one that went to the playoffs. Okay, and in '94, just the champion went. And our district was Buoltz, Palatka, and they were in our district. And they were our 2 hardest games that we had. And we ended up winning both of them, so we were the district champions. But then the next year they went to where they were district champions and runner-ups. And I thought that was the best system. I think this system they have now is a bunch of junk. You know, that what the state needs to do is they need to put football in however many classifications you're going to have, 4 or 5. And make them somewhat geographical. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, you run into the private school, public school debate, which they've always had. But then take all the other sports and put them into 4 classifications and let baseball, basketball, all those geographical things, so they don't have to travel all over the dang place.
Right. You're playing against teams that no one knows, no one's to the game.
Yeah, that are close, and you can get rivalries that way. You know, and the reason why I say put football in a separate deal is because the smaller schools have always said that the numbers were a distinct advantage.
Right.
You know, over that. But by the same token, you know, you got a place like, I think, Williston, where they've got a middle and high school together, and all the kids can play on the
right.
But you know,
you don't. Yeah, it's
right.
It can get kind of out of hand with that.
But I think they had it right when they had the champions and the runner-ups went to the playoffs.
Right. What do you think it'll take for another team in Marion County to win a state championship in football?
I don't think it's going to happen. You know, the talent has gotten watered down so much, and the way the lines are drawn now, and if you look at Marion County football, you know, Forest was very good there for a while. You know, Vanguard was good at the beginning, then Forest came up. You know, and they were very good, and then we got very good, and then they built Bellevue, took a bunch of Forest players.
Westport.
You know, and then they built Westport, took a bunch of my players. You know, so I don't know whether it'll happen again with the larger schools.
I think that I always said that the talent is just too spread out. We had a better chance back in our days when it's just North Marion, Lakewell, Donnellon, Forest and Vanguard.
You know, and we're very fortunate in that North Marion line, North Marion Vanguard. It really wasn't a line. It was kind of gray up there. So we got some of our better players. Yeah, probably would have been North Marion people, but that line was just really gray.
Yeah. Last year, not this year, this season, but last season, that's the most talent I've seen on one team. Vanguard team with Fred Gaskin and them guys was very, very talented. When I went out there and started filming during the summer, you can see it.
I agree that Vanguard has a tremendous amount of talent. Now, I'm going to try and say this. The problem is they make too many mistakes at crucial times. They have too many penalties that are unnecessary penalties, and they don't kick the ball well enough. And I'm not talking about just the punters and the kickers. I'm talking about the cover teams, all that stuff. For the talent that they have, they ought to have a tremendous kicking game. But the times I see them, I don't see that happening.
With all due respect, to me, if you love someone, you tell them the truth. You don't tell them what they want to hear. You tell them what they need to hear, and maybe that seed to take root.
Well, the way I ran practice, the first thing we did in a day, we punted the ball every day. We extra point field goal and block every day.
Special teams is so important.
And then we hit one of the others, alternated those. But we worked at it. And we were very good at it when I was there. I mean, we worked at blocking kicks. We worked at that stuff.
This team here this year had a pretty good kicker. And it surprises me because, last year they struggled with the kicker himself. But this kicker this year was really good. But like you say, critical times of the game down here in Orlando against Orlando Jones, you've been making them all year, but now we can't snap the ball right.
Well, the snappers is a whole different thing. And those guys used to show up 10 minutes early for practice at our place back in the day. But I used to always have one in every class. I wanted a senior, a junior, a sophomore, and a ninth grader that could long snap. Mm-hmm. And because that's part of the deal, and you better have a guy who can get it back there.
Yep. And if it don't do no good, like you say, football is the ultimate team sport. You can have Pete Skoljanovich as kicker. It doesn't do any good if you can't snap him the ball back there.
If you look at Indiana and Ohio State game, 10 points. Indiana gave Ohio State punting the ball. They punted the ball, or they're going to punt the ball, and the kid doesn't catch a snap. You just had to move over a little bit. Ball goes on the ground. I don't know whether they scored a touchdown. No, they kicked a field goal. But another one, the kid, they score a touchdown. It's just so important, and it's not important until you get into a game where you're matched equally talent. If you've got so much better talent than somebody, it doesn't matter.
And I personally think that's the problem. Most people, Vanguard is so talented over them. That's like when you was talking about the schools. Everything is so weak. You beating Forest 45-3. You beating North Man 38-6. You just dominating everybody, and you're covering up these mistakes with the talent. But once it's even out, you can't make these mistakes.
That's exactly right. The penalties and the kicking game show up when two teams are evenly matched. Mm-hmm. That becomes the difference maker.
That's right. And, and discipline. It's about discipline and holding them accountable. Sometimes you may not discipline them because you got it wrapped up in we won by 3 touchdowns. But that shouldn't matter. That's why Nick Saban is so successful, because even in a win, he finds fault,
Well, he's also trying to play against the standard, as he calls it. But, we had certain things that you couldn't do. You couldn't fumble on our team. Yeah. If you were a guy who fumbled a bunch, you weren't going to play a whole lot. You couldn't celebrate in the end zone.
Mm-hmm. Why is that? Football is emotional.
Well, it's emotional, but you're doing it by yourself. Now you can celebrate with your teammates.
You don't want it to be look at me.
It's not a look at me type thing.
Right.
And I had one of my running backs was he kind of liked to celebrate a little bit. Mm-hmm. And he celebrated, and I said, "You better get used to scoring from a long way away." And he said, "What are you talking about?" And I said, "If we get in there close, I'm sticking somebody else in so they don't celebrate."
When I was coaching, I started coaching at the Forest, and you got standards. Me, I'm a cocky kid. I'm still a kid. I'm in my 20s. I believe that as an offensive coordinator, you teach your kids to score every time they get the ball. That's just what I believe. I wasn't looking at, hey, you take your foot off the gas, you beat them pretty bad. But I looked at it as, if I got a strong running game and I'm up 28-3 at halftime, my mind says, okay, I need to work on my passing game now. You know what I'm saying? Because I have a cushion.
Yeah,
I'll work on the things during the game that I'm weak at. So when I play against Vanguard and it's a dog fight, you know what I mean? I'm not throwing an interception. I know that I'm able to do this. What's your perception on that?
Well, you got a few different things that come into play here. Number one is with the running clocks now, how do you get your other kids in the game? You got kids who've been in practice all week.
That's right.
How do you get them in the game to let them practice a little bit? I'm kind of against the second half runoff. Now, back when we had it in the fourth quarter, automatic fourth quarter, at least you could get your kids in more.
Right.
But most of my time was spent back before they had that. I mean, that wasn't even an option. We were going to play the whole game. We played one game, and it was in 94, and we were up 21-0, and Dante Culpepper had not hit the field. We kicked off to them. They fumbled. We picked it up and scored. Mm-hmm. Kicked off to them again. They threw a pick six.
Oh, before you finish,
don't name the team.
No, not the team. How could I forget Von Keith Spencer?
Oh yeah, Von Keith.
He probably was the one who picked it off. That's why I said that.
And then we scored another way, and so it's 21-0. Dante Culpepper has not played a snap. And I said, crap, we got to get some work in. That's the way I look at it. This Friday, we got to get some work in. So we ran our offense probably for 2 series and then just ran the ball. And then when I put my other kids in, then we ran the offense. But, it just, I've been on both sides of it. I've been where people have shellacked me and I just took it like a man, but I've only one time have I run the score up on purpose, and I felt terrible about it. And another time, I kept the first team in there because my quarterback and another quarterback were head-to-head for Player of the Year. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't pulling mine until they pulled theirs.
Exactly.
And they finally pulled theirs, and then I pulled mine.
When I was coaching for your brother, we was playing Leesburg, and I'm coaching freshmen at the time. So, Coach Yancey been kind of talking to me about, try to think about it. Maybe a year you don't have good players, but I believe, like you say, I got a third-string running back who been out here in this hot sun all week. He wants to play and he wants to score.
Yeah.
And to me, football is not sympathy. My job is to score. To me, it's the mentality of score every time you get the ball.
But you also don't have to schedule. See, that's another thing that comes into it is the scheduling part, and if you shellac everybody and run it up on them, they're not going to play you again, and you get to go to Orlando and play Jones, or
You get shellacked.
yeah, you get to go way away because the local teams won't play you.
And I'm gonna tell you what happened though. And you know, I'm coaching freshmen. Leesburg is a district game, and so Coach Yancey, his words getting to me. So we win and we big. It's fourth quarter. So I said, you know what? I'm gonna, take everybody out. Put in whoever, just running up the middle over and over. And the other coach, they kept calling timeout. So I'm thinking, well, what is he doing? And I said to myself, he's trying to score. He's trying to score. So I said, when he called the timeout, I put all the horses in, Coach Yancey. Back in. I'm a kid. I'm 20-something. I visualize this. I go, I'm in a offset I formation. So I go slot left, motion, 28 sweep, reverse. And my man, so he goes in motion. He goes all the way to the sideline. They throw the 28 sweep. The man that went to the sideline, he comes back, get the reverse. I pulling both guards back to the left. Touchdown. We score, right? So the coach from Leesburg is in the middle of the field, and the referees is trying to stop him from coming. So I don't realize. So I'm like, what's going on? So I'm like, let him go. Let him go. Let him lose twice. I'm a kid, And you know that they pretty much called Forrest and refused to play Friday night. See, I didn't understand that, but they had to. The only reason why the varsity got to play is because it was a district game. They had to play the game.
When I was coaching, we had a ninth grade team, and we had a JV team, and we had a varsity team. Mm-hmm. Now, I went down and watched the ninth graders a little bit, but I wasn't involved really with coaching them. Mm-hmm. Now, the JV practiced with us most of the time. They split off into some stuff with their coaches, but we were kind of one team. Mm-hmm. But I was at all the games, and if I had to go down on the sideline and tell somebody, enough, put the other kids in or whatever, they did. But, that's kind of one of those things that, I didn't want to hear from them parents, when the parents would be right that, hey, my kid deserves to play too. It's one thing if your kid's not very good, but if you're winning the game and the game's won or lost, let them play.
See, to me, that's the reason why I never took my foot off the gas, because I wanted everybody to play.
Yeah.
I think they deserve to play and they deserve to score. A lot of those kids, that's the highlight of their life. They're not a good football player. You know what I mean?
I know. If you're doing it with your 2s and 3s, that's one thing. We had one situation, excuse me, talking about that, and Steve Bowen was the quarterback. We were playing unnamed team, and we've got the game won. We're ahead by 5. We can run out the clock. We can snap, take a knee, run out the clock. We snap, take a knee. Steve's the quarterback. Kid comes jumping over and spears Steve. And I'm sitting there watching their sideline, and they don't pull the kid out. And, of course, we call timeout immediately. And I'm watching, and they don't pull the kid out. And I saw one of the coaches who had previously worked with me go down to the head coach, and he say something to him. Still, the kid doesn't come out. I said, okay, they still want to play. I throw it deep to Mel for a touchdown. And, that's...
Yeah. Got to rub it in a little bit.
Well, they still wanted to play. If they had taken the kid out, we took a knee again.
That's right. Coach, this is a part of the episode. We're going to play a game called Fill in the Blank. I'm going to ask you some random questions. You answer them quickly, precisely. First thing come to mind. There's no right or wrong. You ready?
I think.
I've always wanted to.
I've I've got everything I've ever wanted. I mean,
What is something you always wanted to do that you ain't did yet? You don't knocked off everything on your bucket list?
I can't think anything else. I mean, life's good.
Okay. I love when someone
Give somebody else a compliment.
if I had to do it all over again, I would.
I wouldn't cuss quite as much as I used to on the practice field.
My favorite holiday is
Christmas, Hallmark movies.
it aggravates me when people
Have stupid penalties.
the best quality someone can have is
Being kind to other people.
if I was God, the first thing I would do is
Make everybody be kind to other people.
my childhood crush was
Ooh. Farrah Fawcett.
that's a good one. Ginger or Marianne off of Gilligan's Island.
Marianne.
If I could travel anywhere in the world, it would be
Alaska.
my favorite movie is
Rocky Horror Picture Show.
if I could travel anywhere in the world, it would be
Alaska again. I don't want to go anywhere else.
if I could go back to any age, it would be
25.
Jesus is
The man.
when I meet someone, the first thing I notice is
Whether they're a happy person or not.
my greatest strength is
I think I've got empathy for pretty much everybody. Notice I said pretty much.
my greatest weakness is
When I get upset, I tend to hold it in a little bit too long.
the biggest misconception about Phil Yancey is what?
Then I wore flip-flops on the sidelines. I wore either tennis shoes or football shoes.
Why flip-flops?
That's what I wore all the time.
I'm a pretty good guy, but I draw a line in the sand if you
Lie to me.
if I had to star in a movie with any actress, it would be
Robert Redford.
Dan Marino or John Elway.
I think they're both kind of Dan Marino.
Peyton Manning or Tom Brady.
Peyton Manning.
Emmitt Smith or Barry Sanders.
Barry Sanders.
Randy Moss or Terrell Owens.
Randy Moss.
Tony Dorsett or Eric Dickerson.
Tony Dorsett.
Vanguard or Forrest.
Vanguard.
Phil Yancey or Jim Simmons.
Me.
I tell you what, sir, this is the last part of the show. You're going to look into this camera directly over my shoulder, and you're going to give my audience and the world your final thoughts, sir. Any message you want to get out to the world?
Be kind to people and don't waste a day because you never know how many you have.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. There has been a great episode by the great Phil Yancey. That's his final thoughts. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I am your host, William Robinson of TLC Talk, Love, and Communication. We have had a very, very special episode of my story with the one and only PY, a.k.a. Phil Yancey, ladies and gentlemen. He's the fourth of many brothers. He have a great family in this community. He has touched many lives, ladies and gentlemen. We want to continue to show this man some support. You see him out in the community, show him some love, man. He ain't gonna bite you. We see he got a little smiles on his face. He laugh. He's a regular human being, ladies and gentlemen. I tell you what, Vanguard High School has been very, very blessed to have great coaches from back to back, from Jim Simmons, Jim Yancey, to Phil Yancey, to Elwin Farmer, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, we only got one life to live, and it's a whole lot easier with love and communication. You can donate to this channel with Cash App, Anybody Love You, PayPal, Robinson74William at gmail.com, Zelle 352-209-3306. Remember, nobody told you they love you today. William Robinson loves you.